Tengo el gusto de presentarles hoy al doctor Joel Somella. Él trabaja actualmente en Beijing, es un instituto laboratorio de fluidos que está en Grenoble. Este laboratorio se caracteriza por, antes que nada, el doctor Somella terminó su doctorado en el Instituto de Mecánica de Grenoble, entonces permaneció local. Y este laboratorio de Grenoble principalmente se caracteriza porque hace muchos estudios donde combinan tanto experimentos como experimentos de laboratorio, experimentos numéricos, observaciones, etc. Es bastante completo en este sentido. Y entre lo que destaca el doctor Somella es que él es jefe o encargado de la plataforma Coriolis. La plataforma Coriolis es el tanque giratorio más grande que existe, es de 13 metros de diámetro, donde se hacen experimentos, donde uno trata de simular los efectos de rotación de diferentes fluidos. Tiene más de 100 artículos publicados, ha recibido varios premios, entre ellos el Prix Lumière y el Grand Prix de las Academias de Ciencias, y también ha sido invitado para dar charlas en el Instituto de Newton, Cambridge, los más prestigiados para los que hacemos fluidos. Y bueno, sin más por el momento los dejo con el título que tiene, son experimentos de laboratorio entonados a la corriente circumpolar, cómo se transfiere el momento, a partir con ondas internas de gravedad y también con remolinos.
Okay, so thank you for your invitation. I am very pleased to visit your institution. And so I will talk about one kind of experiment that we are doing on our big Coriolis platform. It's about the simulation of the Antarctic circumpolar current, which is quite important in terms of climate and mixing of the ocean. So the work is done in collaboration with a few people here. Ajayi, who is a student, master student from Nigeria, is participating in our international master program, and also Keshav Raja, who is a PhD student from India, and Chantal Staquet, that you may know because she came here a few years ago, and she's a professor at Grenoble, and she's also my wife. And also Samuel Vibou, who is an engineer who is managing the whole technical aspect of the rotating platform. And Bruno Voisin, who you may know, he's a good theoretician working in internal waves in terms of analytical theory. And Cruz, who is has started last year PhD. He's from here, you may know. Okay, so okay, so you may know about the global, the picture of the global oceanic circulation. So basically, the ocean is driven by two effects, by the wind. But the wind produces, for instance, the Gulf Stream, but it produces mainly big gear. But there's another source of circulation, which is thermal effect. Like in the atmosphere, the atmosphere is heated near the equator and cooled near the pole, and it produces circulation. Similarly, the ocean is also undergoing so-called convective global circulation, but it is very different from the atmosphere because the water go down only in a very localized place, which is here near Greenland. And what happens is that you have water from surface here going northward, in particular in the Gulf Stream. So it's heated, so it gets evaporated, so it's more salty. So and then when you reach the polar region, it cooled, and then it can go down, it can sink because it's both salty and very cold. But this occurs only in very localized places. It also occurs near the Antarctic Ocean, but okay, I will talk about that later. And so this water from the surface go down and have a long path under the ocean near the American coast here. So the gray is the deep circulation, and then it finally mixes to the it needs to return, of course, because you need to have a closed circuit. And by the way, it takes about 1 or 2,000 years for the whole circuit to occur. It's quite slow effect, but it's of course it depends on this very localized region and the combination of salt and cold water, which is why it's called thermohaline circulation. It's involves both salinity and temperature. But the return flow occurs through mixing, which is much less understood, because of course the water that go down it's a cold water. So in all region with temperate temperature, it's still worse in the tropic. You have very cold water in the bottom and warm water in the top. So it does not mix, in fact, because of stratification. And the only way, in fact, to mix is due to internal gravity waves that are excited by other processes. And this, so it's quite, this process of mixing with the upper ocean is quite important and controlling partly the global circulation. Otherwise, there is no way, if you don't introduce some energy, because to mix this water, you need to basically you have the heavy, dense cold water, and you need to rise this dense water. So you need to bring energy, and this is brought by turbulence. And the only way to bring this turbulence is by the way of internal gravity wave. And so there is a well-known model by Munk that try to quantify this effect of mixing. So it just have so it applied to the main part of the ocean. And so there is a vertical velocity W, which in fact basically you feel the deep ocean in the polar region here. And then everywhere you have this water that have a very slow vertical motion, and this is balanced by diffusion from the surface. And B is the temperature, for instance, the buoyancy, which is related to the temperature. And the solution of this simple equation, so diffusion plus advection with a vertical velocity, it gives an exponential profile. And this is what you observe this is the profile of temperature in the ocean. This is the depth. You have 5 kilometers here. And this is potential temperature, which is related to temperature. You see exponential profile. And by fitting this profile, we can deduce eddy diffusivity, kappa. And it gives 10⁻⁴ here. But there are some direct measurement of turbulence in the ocean, which give a much lower value, 10 times lower. And so this is one of the big problems for the ocean dynamics, is to understand so-called mixing. And there are different processes that can occur. And in particular, now, okay, the part of the solution is that the internal gravity waves are much more intense in some specific region near the coast, and they can be excited by different processes, in particular by the tide. So this is through boundaries. So this model assumes that mixing occurs everywhere in a uniform way, which is not true. Of course, you have boundary effects that are near the coast. You have much more active current, and you can have in particular strong excitation of internal wave. But another answer to this problem is that the role of the Antarctic circumpolar current, which was until fairly recently it was underestimated. In fact, people did not make much measurement there, and in fact now it is known that this is very important in terms of global mixing. Okay, so so this is here is a map of the estimation of internal wave production by tide. So when tide So it's near the coast. So typically you have tide produce current, and if you have density stratification, you can have generation of so-called internal waves. And internal waves are like surface waves, except that they occur at a density interface. If you have, and also, so if you have a current that moves over a strait or some topography, you can excite internal gravity waves from the main tide, which is so-called barotropic tide. The main tide produced by the moon is occur in the whole depth. So the whole water layer move with the same velocity typically, except very close to the bottom where there is a friction and boundary layer. But the whole water column move in a uniform way. But if you have density stratification, you can have excitation of internal waves for which the motion is opposite basically in the bottom and upper layer. And you can also have internal gravity wave propagating in a uniform stratification. So if you don't have a sharp density interface, but a uniform gradient of density, in that case the wave can propagate with some angle. They not propagate only horizontally, they can propagate with some angle, and the frequency of the wave depends on the angle of propagation. I don't know how much you know about all that, so sorry if you have any question, don't hesitate to ask. And sorry if I explain things that are too simple for some of you. Okay, but
excuse me.
Yes.
I have a basic question. You said that there is a need for friction. I mean, for this case, you need to
mix, yes.
Momentum or temperature. And,
well, you need to mix temperature, yes.
Yeah, but in order to have the closed circuit, all you need is continuity, right? Because the fluid is incompressible, so what you have one place will have to be connected to the rest of the...
No, because the problem is that unlike the atmosphere, in the atmosphere you heat the ground, so in the atmosphere you can have convection, but in the ocean you heat only the surface. And so in the absence of diffusion, you just heat the surface, and it would the effect would remain localized in the upper layer. There will be no deep effect. So you need diffusion. In the polar region, there is a specific aspect that then it can. The water is very cold, and moreover it's salty because it comes from a region where there is evaporation that increases the salinity. So in that case you can have downward flow, but it cannot. Of course, continuity is not enough. You need also dynamically to be able to move the fluid. You need globally you need to be able to drive the circulation, to engage. So there is always some friction. So you need some mechanism of driving. In the atmosphere it's different, but in the atmosphere you can have rising air near the tropic. So with buoyancy you rise the air, and then the air is cooling in the high altitude and latitude, and then this comes down by buoyancy, by gravity. So you provide energy to the fluid, but here it's since you heat the upper layer, you cannot really you can show in fact by looking at the energy that you cannot produce energy. In fact, you need to have an external source of energy to mix. In fact, okay. And again, you have wind, but wind produces horizontal motion. It does not also. It's you are confined by stratification. The wind produces current. The current produced by wind, like Gulf Stream, they are confined to a few hundred meters. They don't penetrate in the interior. In fact.
Yeah, but you have deep convection in the high latitudes.
Yes, you have deep.
You will have the.
Yes, this is what I. But
same temperature always.
Yes, but this can, of course, you could imagine, you could have some mixing confined to a high latitude, but still you need to, if you want to have a closed circulation at the scale of the whole globe, you need to have a mechanism to mix in the low latitude. In that case, you have very strong stratification, and you cannot mix.
Right.
To mix, you need to bring energy, and this is the role of this internal wave is to bring energy. But it occurs through turbulence, localized turbulence patches. It does not. It's not a global effect.
But you have to have the balance between the deep convection, the formation of deep water. Otherwise, sometimes you will have the same temperature in the whole water column.
Yes.
You're right. It's stratified. You need energy to lift the water.
If you would block completely apparently this happened in the past. Sometimes during the ice age, apparently according to records, they can find from sediments, they can measure they can see that the sediments have less oxygen at some during ice age, and so it means that there was apparently the circulation was blocked possibly because of sea ice, or there was some blocking of the circulation. In that case, the deep ocean there was less gradient because you did not feed the deep ocean with cold water, and also there's also less oxygen because oxygen comes from the surface. So this is not obvious that you should have this circulation. It corresponds to some particular condition that we have right now, but it did not occur in the past. And we know another example. There is an example of the Dark Sea in Russia, Chernobyl. Black Sea, yes. And in that case, there is no circulation. The top remain. In that case, there is no circulation. Okay, so it's not obvious that you have this global circulation. Okay, wait. Okay, so again, you need a mechanism of mixing, and when again you observe internal waves everywhere. So there is some turbulence produced by. So internal waves are produced in particular by wind gusts. You have wind fluctuation that produce current, oscillating current, and this can propagate as an internal wave. But this is not enough. People have measured that again, and they find that it's not provide enough energy to provide the diffusivity that has deduced from global observation by Munk. So, but the internal wave can be much stronger near some coastal region because of tidal effect. And this is what is shown here. You have some region here. Particularly when you have straits, you can have very strong. Sometimes you have internal waves that can have vertical displacement of 100 meters. Very strong, like tsunami, much stronger than tsunami. Of course, the energy involved is much less because the density difference is 1,000 less than the free surface waves. So they propagate much slower, but still the amplitude can be quite strong by tidal effect. Okay, so locally, but this is I think not enough. Okay. Again, so you can have wind gusts that produce internal waves. And also another source I will discuss here is the flow of the Antarctic circumpolar current, which is around the Antarctic. And it moves, so this current goes deep to the deep ocean because it's weakly stratified there. And so it hits basically the topography. And then it excites waves, like in the atmosphere you have topographic waves emitted by mountains. So you have air going above mountain that excite waves, and similarly this current can excite wave. And so this is both important for the current itself because it takes momentum from the current. It's like a friction because you use the energy of the current to produce these waves. And you lose momentum, and also it can be a source of mixing by itself. Okay, so we shall focus on this. Okay, and this is okay. So this is a more modern view of this circulation. So this is basically the deep water formation in near Greenland here. Yes, and it can more or less mix everywhere here. And you have also a source of dense dense water from Antarctica, and it comes mainly from here, from formation of ice. When you form ice, sea ice, when you form ice, the ice has less salinity than the water, so there is some salt which is released, and so you have salty water that is released here and go down, so it's part of the circulation. But also you have the Antarctic circumpolar current that interact with bottom topography, and it induces by itself some waves and mixing. So it's quite a complex problem, so it's interesting to study in laboratory to understand better the different process. Okay, so, wait. Yes, so this is a scheme of the Antarctic polar. So the Antarctic polar current is driven by the atmosphere, so which you know that there's very strong eastward wind around Antarctica. Of course, and they drive the ocean. And since there is no continent there, it's quite free to go around. While in the mid-latitude, the boundary of the continent completely modified the current. And in particular, the Gulf Stream is controlled by the American coast. While, of course, in the Antarctica, you can have free current. And since it's weakly stratified, the current goes very deep and it goes down to the bottom, and then you have a complex topography. And the point now is to understand what is the friction, basically, what is the friction effect of this topography. So of course you may see it's classical to have in engineering you have flow of rough surface, and you know that it's known that that roughness can increase the friction, and boundary layer theory that provide quantitative result on that. But here it's different because the stratification is stratified, so the interaction of current with topography is quite different. In particular, you can have emission of internal gravity wave, and also the water does not go easily over topography. It tends to go around because of stratification. It cannot easily rise. So this is why it's quite different than usual roughness in I would say in engineering, because you can consider that as a big duct with rough bottom, but it's not like that because of topography, because of stratification, and also there is another important effect is the Coriolis force, which is not occur in engineering problem. Here it's a numerical simulation that's done by these people, Nikurashin and Ferrari. Okay, there are various authors, in particular Nikurashin, and they find they put a random topography, and they are able to estimate the rate of mixing depending on the depth here. But they don't really explain very well the mechanism involved. It's a kind of more like direct simulation. They put the right ingredient, but they don't distinguish the different effects. We try to understand better the fluid dynamic aspect of the involved in this process. Yes. Particularly to understand better how it depends on the topography and. Okay. And there are also some measurements now. There's also the new. There are now people oceanographers are able to estimate the energy dissipation by measuring the small scale turbulence in the ocean. It's quite difficult measurement. But they only recently they were able to really do that in the Antarctic Ocean. Okay. So there are different previous results by Nikurashin and Ferrari involving the main simulation were done with two-dimensional topography. So in that case, you assume topography is two-dimensional. it does, and in that case you have fairly specific behavior because you cannot go around the topography. So the flow must go above topography. But in reality, when you have 3D topography, it can go around. So it's quite different process. And this is, in fact, okay, there has been some numerical study as I showed before. But still, but we want to do some laboratory experiments to better characterize the different process depending on the relevant parameters. So, okay, so there have been many laboratory studies involved with topography, but generally with no Coriolis effect, just stratification. There are several references here. So the key thing is that you have the very important parameter is the Froude number, which characterizes the ratio of the velocity to basically to the stratification, which is governed by the Braun-Weisseler frequency n. And Braun-Weisseler frequency is basically the gradient of density. So it's if you have a vertically displaced fluid element, you get an oscillation. The fluid element, if it's too dense, it tends to come back by gravity, and it undergoes an oscillation with this frequency, which is just given by the gradient of density multiplied by gravity, basically. And so this is the Froude number. You may know that the usual Froude number in a free surface is the velocity divided by square root of gh, which is the typical velocity of the waves, surface waves. Here it's similar, except that now hn, in fact, h is the typical height, h is the n is the gradient of density. So hn basically is the gravity acceleration multiplied by the relative density difference. It's called g prime. So it's called reduced gravity. And this is, so basically it's like a usual Froude number, but expressed from the reduced gravity. So because it involves the internal waves instead of surface wave. So it's much the speed of, again, the speed of propagation of gravity wave, of internal waves are much slower than the surface wave. The slower by a factor, which is the relative density difference, which is typically in the ocean 1,000. So if you take square root of 1,000, you get 30. So typically this internal wave propagates at a speed 1/30 of tsunami, for instance, which are involved with surface wave. Okay, so and now if you have like a spherical cap, for instance, we can show the result from experiments is that you can define a local Froude number which depends on the. So if you increase the velocity, you get height here, which is such that the Froude number is equal to 1. So if you increase the velocity, this height increase, and basically the fluid that is above this so-called separating or splitting line, the fluid that is above will go over the topography. It has enough energy to go over the topography. If it's below, it just goes around. So this is a splitting, dividing streamline. So which is sketched here also. So if you increase the velocity, you will have more fluid will go over. It's quite intuitive. But if you have very slow velocity, it prefers to go around. Okay, so this is a key thing that you don't have in 2D. If you have a crest, then you need to go above. You cannot go around. Okay.
So this is an effect with stratification?
Yes, stratification is, yes.
It's not stratified.
Yes, all that is controlled by stratification. If it's not stratified, nothing. If it's not stratified, you just have ordinary, it's ordinary like aerodynamics. You have a wake. Yes, it's a problem of
the sphere.
Yes. If you take the whole sphere, it's a flow around the sphere. If you take a spherical cap, it's an aerodynamic problem, which is not easy, but it's different. You don't have the same problem. In particular, of course, you cannot excite internal wave, because the problem, the fluid that go over, because it's a heavy fluid, when it goes over, you have a heavy fluid that is moved, and it's displaced from its equilibrium position. So when you go, then it tends to go down to oscillate to produce internal waves. Okay, so this is an example, an experiment showing that. So this is a vertical cut, and these are the, I think, the density anomaly. So basically it corresponds to the vertical displacement of fluid element. If a fluid element is vertically displaced, it has a positive density anomaly. It's more dense than the background. And so this is related to vertical displacement. You see that it produces internal wave that propagate vertically. And this can be viewed as a combination of advection by the flow. So there is a flow going like that, and there is a vertical propagation of the wave, and in fact the pattern is steady in the frame of reference of the topography, because it's excited by a steady perturbation. But in the frame of reference of the fluid, if we move on the fluid, you see you move like that, you observe an oscillation. So it's a wave in the sense that it propagates with respect to the fluid. Basically, it propagates against the fluid. There is a vertical component of the propagation and a horizontal component. And the horizontal component is just against the velocity. So in the frame of reference of the laboratory, there is no propagation. It's just so-called stationary wave. And this occurs typically in mountains as well, in the atmosphere. You have waves that are stationary with respect to the mountain, but it propagates against the wind, in fact. Okay, but this was done by these people in Cambridge. This was done at a small scale. It was only a few centimeters, so the Reynolds number was quite limited, and also it was in a channel. And also there is no Coriolis effect. But by the way, here you see the part below here. It's not the wave, it's the part, as explained, the part that goes around. So there is some, okay, I don't know exactly how they get this, but basically here you don't have wave, you have just the flow around. Okay, yeah, okay. These are also experiments done also some time ago in Grenoble by Emil Hopfinger and Jan Bert Flohr, you may know. And this was a full sphere. So they moved the sphere in that case in a stratified medium. This is a vertical cut, and this is visualized by a dye that visualize the different density level. So you see that they are perturbed here, and there is the part of the wake is turbulent, and part of is due to wave. The combination of turbulence behind the body and waves in the upper part, or here lower part, because it's a full sphere, it's not a cap. And they change the Froude number, and when they increase the Froude number, okay, they get so small Froude number correspond to strong stratification effect. Okay, and they observe something that is interesting, is that the waves are not only produced by the body itself. In particular, at large Froude number, it's produced also by turbulent patches. So you have a fairly complex situation with turbulence that itself produce waves. You see here that there are perturbations. So there are the wake. In particular, there are coherent vortices that are emitted in the wake, and these emit internal waves. So internal waves are not only emitted by the topography itself, but also further downstream by the turbulence. Okay. Okay. So this is now the experiment that we did last year in Grenoble. So we are using our Coriolis turntable, which is basically a big cylinder, big rotating 13 meters in diameter. And to produce the flow, here we just change the rotation rate. So it's not a straight flow, it's a circular flow, but with a big radius compared to the size of the topography, which is about 60 centimeters, 69 centimeters here. So we have a spherical cap, and we suddenly, okay, so we can work either with no background rotation. In that case, we suddenly move put the tank into rotation, and so because of inertia, the fluid, the water remain at rest, and so it's you can consider the topography is moving in a fluid at rest. Or if you change the frame of reference, you have it's like yes, you can.
Excuse me.
Yes.
How do you make the fluid, the stratification?
Yes, the stratification, we fill the water, we fill the tank initially by using, we have a set of injector in the bottom, and we have a reservoir of salty water, a reservoir of fresh water, and with a pumping system we can control at each time the density that we inject. And by a computer program, we can produce any kind of stratification. In this case, we produce uniform stratification. So you progressively, first we introduce fresh water, so it becomes the top, and then progressively we introduce denser and denser water, and then we get linear stratification. And it takes a long time to mix. In fact, the diffusion at this scale, we have 1 meter depth, or nearly 1 meter depth. So it would take several. So by pure diffusion, it will take 1 year maybe. But by even in the presence of perturbation, when you produce perturbation, it's mainly waves. So the fluid element, they just move and come back by the restoring force due to stratification, and mixing is quite slow.
The density stratification is produced when the tank is still, or
no. In fact, here, okay, we produce the stratification. We can produce stratification during rotation. But here it's we have two rotations. Here we have the main rotation and the change of rotation that you use to produce the current in the rotating frame of reference. So either we have no background rotation and we just produce a fairly small rotation to produce the flow, but it's and we can also start with rotation and change slightly the rotation rate to produce the flow in the rotating frame of reference. But we can we produce the stratification in the presence of rotation. We are able to fill the tank in the presence of rotation, which is better because if you have a strong change of rotation, then you produce strong mixing because you have to do it very slowly. But it's better indeed to prepare stratification during rotation. Okay, so we can measure profile of density, and we have to measure the flow. We use a system of particle imaging velocimetry. So we have a horizontal laser sheet here. We can put at different levels, and we can scan the volume, also changing the level. And we have several cameras. We can make top views from the camera, and by measuring the displacement of particle, we get horizontal velocity fields. So okay, and this is the and we did either with 1 cup to study the single wake, but also we put several identical cups to get something like roughness, or to measure. Basically, the idea is to measure what is the friction with the bottom. So we produce this rotating current, and we measure how it decays with time. So it's a way to estimate the friction. Okay. Okay, and this is the the system of laser sheet. So we see the particle here, and okay, here is the impact of the laser sheet on the cap. Yeah. Don't care about this spiral. It's just there was some dye. Sometimes we put dye also to visualize the flow, and there was some dye under because the cap are transparent, and we see something under the cap. But this is not important in what we are studying here. Okay. And okay, these are okay the similarity number. Okay, to compare with the ocean, we need to use the right non-dimensional number. So I already talked about the Froude number, which so by comparing you see in the laboratory we have a velocity a few centimeters per second here, and we can compare with the velocity of the Antarctic current, which is 10 centimeters per second. We have a different stratification n here. But you have a different scale, of course, and but you can get similar Froude number here. You see, and also another important parameter is the ratio of Coriolis effect to the stratification, and we can also try to approach the ocean, and another important parameter is the Rossby number, which is obtained like the Froude number, but with the replacing n by the so-called Coriolis parameter, which is basically twice the rotation rate of the tank. And this the Rossby number characterizes the influence of rotation. If you have a strong, a small Rossby number corresponds to a very strong effect of Coriolis force, or which occur for large topography. So we have different regimes depending on the size of topography, and in fact, in practice, it corresponds to different Rossby number. And we have also a Burger number, which is basically the ratio of Rossby to the Froude. Burger number is important. It corresponds to, for people who are more familiar with ocean problem, it corresponds to so-called Rossby deformation, the Rossby deformation radius. Compared to the scale of your experiment, and the Rossby deformation radius typically give you the distance of interaction of vortices, and it gives you basically the scale of vortices in the ocean. So typically in the ocean it's a few 10 kilometers, which is typically the size of vortices, and it's a quite important parameter. And if you have a scale larger than this deformation radius, you can get so-called geostrophic regime. While if you have smaller scale, you have okay, different regimes which are not in a geostrophic equilibrium. But okay, basically sorry. The point is that in our case we are interested in fairly moderate Rossby number. What is the Rossby number? It's not given here. Froude number, yes, the Burger. Okay, basically the Burger is the further one, so it means that the Froude number is the Rossby number is the same order as the Froude number. It corresponds typically to fairly small topography, a few kilometers width for the ocean. If you take the scale D, yes, about a few kilometers, and the depth, we can also compare the depth. So it's fairly small topography which are involved. Okay, and of course the big difference compared to ocean is the Reynolds number. Of course the Reynolds number is quite large in the ocean, and here of course the difficulty in the laboratory is to be able to reproduce not the same Reynolds number at the ocean. It's hopeless, but to at least large enough Reynolds number so you are not too much controlled by viscosity effect. So you want to have inertial dynamics, that is motion that is not damped by viscosity, which is a problem. If you have a small scale tank, for instance, we can more or less reproduce the Rossby number and the Froude number, but then it will be very small scale and it will have a strong viscosity effect. This is why we need a big tank like that. to have also a small, at least to have a high enough Reynolds number. So typically a 10 to the 4, which is much less than the ocean, but still enough to be not too much controlled by dissipation. Okay, so okay, and now this is, by the way. Okay, so this is what you observe here. It's we have a this is the waves. So it's what is plotted here is from measurement. So we measure the velocity anomaly here, and this is the topography is here. So we see basically so we would like to have a vertical velocity which is more characteristic of waves, because the water is going up and down and it produces vertical velocity. What we measure here, we don't measure the vertical velocity, we measure the horizontal velocity, but still it's related to the vertical velocity. So we get a typical, it's like, well, we can see the wave like that, which propagates downward. And here with the rotation change a little the propagation. You get so-called, instead of the pure internal wave, you get so-called inertial gravity wave. So the fluid element also rotate because of Coriolis effect. They rotate in a horizontal plane in addition to the vertical oscillation due to buoyancy. But still they behave in a fairly similar way. Okay, so we can measure that. And by the way, here what we plot is the r theta, so it's the azimut. It was a circular geometry, so we have azimut, but we assume that it's close to a straight geometry. So because of the small curvature effect, so we just unwrap basically the curvature to get something straight, which is more closer to what we could get in theory. So in reality, you have it's slightly curved like that. In fact, it's not straight. Okay, and this was compared with linear theory. So we have different approaches. So this was done recently by Cruz, by the way, and it's just a Fourier transform of the topography, and for each mode, you can calculate the vertical propagation of this mode, which depend on its wavelength, and using the dispersion relation for the internal gravity wave, and you get the wave that looks fairly well like the experiments. Okay, this is an approximation, an analytical approximation which is valid for far field, far enough from topography, but it's not does not work very well in this case. Okay, so you more or less reproduce the topography, except that if you look carefully, the wavelength is a little shorter than the observation. Okay, and here it's a vertical plane. So you see you had before you had a horizontal cut like that, and now you see a vertical cut. And you see it propagates also vertically away from the topography. And here I have a movie. Does it work? Oh yes, here maybe. I hope. Do you have the? Ah yes, here. All right. Ah, here.
Non, mais il faut arrêter ça.
So I want to click on here. Right. It's the next.
No, the next.
Okay, and here. Okay, here. No? Okay, here. Okay, so you start. Here is a full numerical simulation, maybe. So here you. Okay, maybe I can click again. Okay, so you see the same thing, but just it's developed in time. But this is a full numerical simulation, while the other one is a linear theory. So this is obtained by starting. One difficulty with numerical simulation is to starting progressively to avoid the initial perturbation of the flow. So we have to ramp in the initial velocity to avoid this problem. Okay, basically this is ongoing work again by Cruz. So it's just the idea is to go further in the modeling and to have a full
Is this a finite difference simulation, or
it's a volume, finite volume. Yes, finite volume. It's a code. The code used is a code by a Japanese guy, which is called Aiki. It's very similar to, for people who know the MIT code. So I think it's finite volume. This code has been developed by the Japanese guy Aiki, but it's a similar principle as the MIT code. And so it's non-hydrostatic, which is important for this kind of phenomena occurring at fairly small scale. It's non-hydrostatic. So it's full, basically it's full Navier-Stokes equation with stratification and, or full Boussinesq equation with also, in this case there is no Coriolis force, and later we shall consider the case of Coriolis force, and the idea is to get close link between the numerics and the experiments. But this is still ongoing work. Okay, and these are vertical, okay, these are some again from the experiments, we compare. So this is exactly, it's not exactly the vertical displacement that we show in the previous view, because again, in the laboratory we cannot measure the vertical displacement. What we measure here is the horizontal velocity depending on x and vertical position. So, but we can track the propagation of the waves here. So the topography is here, it produces this wave. So again, the wave in reality propagates like that with respect to the fluid. And as I said before, you get a steady pattern, a static pattern, which is a result of this propagation, which is propagating against the flow. This is with rotation. Okay, don't go into detail. The interesting thing is that we can measure the wavelength here and compare with the theory and numerics, and we find a discrepancy. It works fairly well for small velocity, but for here is the velocity in centimeter per second and wavelength. And so, according to this to the theory, it should increase. It should. Well, basically, we get a wavelength that is larger than what you expect from the theory. And the idea is that what happens is that we have a detachment. When you have a strong velocity field, we get a detachment of the flow, and we get effective topography which is wider, in fact. Because the wavelength is typically given by the scale of the topography. No, sorry. What is it? Here? No. Yes, here. Okay, yes. Again, the wavelength here is given by the scale of the topography. This is what sets the wavelength. In fact, you have to make a Fourier transform of the topography. You have a range of wavelength, but the typical wavelength is given by the scale of the topography. So we expect that if the topography is bigger, we will get a bigger wavelength. But we find that when we increase the velocity, we get a bigger wavelength, and we explain that by the fact that you have a detachment of the flow. So the flow, instead of staying on the topography, it goes away and produce a bigger deformation on a longer horizontal scale, and it results. So it is result in a longer wavelength. Okay. Okay. Bon, this is I say the theory gives us shorter wavelength. Okay, and then, okay, now I go to another aspect, because we have this wave that is due to the flow that goes above the topography, but as I said, there is a splitting line, and below that you have the flow that goes around the topography, not above, but around, and this produces a usual kind of usual vorticity detachment, and this produces a wake which is like with a emission of vortices with like a Strual observation of Strual for a wake of a cylinder, basically. But we observe that this occurs when we have rotation, and when we have no rotation, we observe, in fact, just detachment of this is vorticity. So you have positive and negative vorticity, which correspond basically to the shear, because behind the topography we have a slower velocity, and you have a shear between the high velocity here and the slower velocity here. It produces positive vorticity here and negative here. So we have two layers of vorticity which represent the shear. Because here we are, compared to the previous data, we are now much lower, we are close to the bottom. So we see again the wake instead of the waves that occur above. We see what happened very close to the bottom. And we see a big difference between the case with rotation and non-rotation. The case with rotation, we do observe the detachment of eddies. And so we here. So here I show. So it doesn't work. No, but here. No, wait. Sorry. Why it doesn't work? Here maybe. Why it doesn't? Here. No, sorry. Bon, I don't know. Here I saw the. Maybe here.
It is controlled by the counter, not the mouse.
I saw the arrow. Bon. Wait, I see the arrow, but. It doesn't work. But basically what you see with no rotation, we get a straight wake, and with rotation you get detachment of vortices, like shown here. You get this, you get this detachment of vortices of opposite sign, von Karman alley. And this is also similar to what is observed in the atmosphere. You may have seen this nice view from satellite. And this is the atmosphere, not the ocean. We see clouds and we see the wake of an island, here Madeira. And we see nice alley of von Karman alley of vortices. But some experiments, we find that you need Coriolis force to get that. If you have no Coriolis force, we don't get these coherent vortices. We get a more straight wake. And we think that the difference is due to the fact that it's a different property of turbulence. If you have no rotation, the turbulence tend to dissipate the energy. So you have vertical shear because this occurs only in a fairly thin layer at the scale of the topography. So we have a strong shear between this wake and the upper fluid. And in the pure stratification, we know that there is very strong dissipation in shear. While if you have rotation, you have a tendency to have a higher correlation length in the vertical. We are closer to geostrophic regime for which we have a weak dissipation. So we need Coriolis effect to avoid this dissipation and to get this nice Karman vortex street. Which of course we don't have this problem in a usual, if you have a cylinder, you have a very long cylinder, so you don't have this friction with the upper fluid that we have here. Okay.
But will this affect how stratification affects? I mean, if you did have stratification and you have very strong rotation, you probably see the same thing.
No, we want to do that, yes. Here we stay in a regime which is more relevant for the ocean, for which density effect is stronger than rotation. Rotation is important, but still lower. F is smaller than N, which is typically what happened in the ocean. We didn't explore the regime with F larger than N, dominated by rotation. In that case, I'm not sure what happened. In case you expect to have Taylor column, and you may get similar thing. I'm not sure anybody did experiments, and I'm not sure what we expect in this case. Possibly it will also occur in that case. But if there is no stratification and no rotation, no stratification, it's ordinary fluid mechanics, and I don't think we shall get that either, because it's more like the wake of a sphere, which is turbulent. It produces some coherent features, but not as coherent as this nice vortex strict. So I am sure that with no stratification, no rotation, we will have not this effect. So to get this nice vortex strict, we need both stratification and rotation. Basically. Maybe just rotation enough is but I'm not sure. Okay. Okay, about this, some comparison with this has been okay. People have studied that in a previous. Okay, it's a little technical. I will comparison with some previous study. In particular, this was studied in relation with the atmospheric observation that I showed before. This wake of island, which is quite a striking phenomena to observe from satellite. Okay, and now, I looking to the effect of multiple topography, not a single one. So we observed, as I said before, we want to. The final goal is to understand the friction effect by this topography. So the wake of a single topography is just a first step to understand the more complex situation and the effect of random, basically many topography, which is like roughness. And so here we observe versus time, we observe the decay of the velocity at different height. So this is time, and at different height here. So here it corresponds to the upper level. So you see that this is with no rotation. The upper level continue basically during the whole experiment. The velocity remains constant in the upper level. It doesn't feel the bottom, in fact. There is some strong friction in the bottom. You see that at 10 centimeters here it decays a lot because it's at the level of the topography. But a little here it's okay 15. Okay, when you are well above the topography, there is no effect. It's localized to the bottom. Yes.
How is that? How that diagram changes when the stratification is very strong? Maybe the upper levels don't feel anything because it's too stratified, it's too dense below.
Yes, this is the point. As the upper level, well, we see basically the level below the top of the topography. They receive a strong friction because all this wake that we observe, they tend to produce a lot of dissipation. And globally, it produces friction. But above the topography, you have waves, and wave emission could induce some friction, but it seems to be quite weak. So there is very little friction in the upper part. And then if you decrease the topography at some stage, it will be like an ordinary turbulent layer, which we also don't grow very fast, in fact. But if you increase the stratification, it will be the same. It will be. But now, if you introduce the rotation, you get a quite different behavior. You see that the effect of topography influence the whole water column here. So it decays less, but all the different levels basically behave the same way. So the effect of topography is propagated to the whole water column. Because of the Coriolis effect, it's a kind of Taylor column effect. And we can characterize a rate of dissipation here, exponential rate. By the way, okay, this is a little not very regular because of measurement problem. As I said, it's a multi-level, so we scan, but we stay at some level. Progressively we scan. So when you come back to the same level, we have some basically we have some discontinuity because okay, so. Because yes, these in fact these correspond to the real measurement are here, and these correspond to the switching to the time it takes to go back to the same level. Okay, bon, but still the global effect is given. Okay. Oh. Okay, and okay, these are some. Okay, okay, no, maybe I will not. This is some turbulence that is observed at different levels. This is vorticity field. You see, this is the mark of the topography, and this is vorticity fluctuation here. And we have also kinetic energy. So we do observe some turbulence that is go to the inside. In particular, when you have rotation effect, you see that the turbulence reach much more the inside of the water column. And this is at a level 60 centimeters, so it's quite above the topography. And we do observe that, for instance, here, you have Reynolds stress and vorticity that are stronger with rotation. It fits with the fact that you have influence that move upward in the case of Coriolis effect. Okay. Right. What happened? Okay. And then we observe again okay. The interesting thing, we observe the excitation of inertial oscillation. So I don't have time too much to discuss that, but there was some. I talked about the previous result by Stake and with numerical simulation with a two-dimensional topography, and they found the process of internal wave emission that in the internal wave were unstable and producing inertial waves, which are inertial gravity wave with frequency lower than the initial wave. So basically the main wave become unstable and produce lower secondary wave of lower frequency, which are called inertial wave when their frequency is close to the so-called inertial frequency, which is given by the Coriolis parameter. And we do observe this excitation of inertial oscillation, and it believed to be important for the process of interaction with the Antarctic current, because this wave can propagate upward and interact with the current in the upper layer. Okay, no, I don't. Because in the real ocean, the problem is that the stratification is not uniform, and because the stratification is stronger on the top, and the ordinary wave then tend to be deviated by the change of stratification, while these inertial waves are able to propagate upward. So it's important in terms of application to the ocean. Okay, bon. Right. Okay. Okay, bon, maybe the... Okay, bon, Okay, so the main, okay, bon, maybe I will not come to that. The main idea is that, again, we have two effects. We have the emission of internal waves, which we found it does not affect too much the water column, but this effect of the turbulent wake that is at the level of the topography seems to be a source of dissipation, which is important, and it acts like a roughness in the boundary layer, basically. And we can estimate energy dissipation produced by this, by each topography, and by introducing a drag coefficient, like in usual aerodynamics, you have a drag coefficient that gives you the momentum that is taken by the wake. And by considering the global observation of the decay, we can deduce, and dividing by the number of mountains, which is 20, we can deduce the drag coefficient for each mountain. And this is what we get here, a CD. So we get a fairly large drag coefficient, which would be, if you have a sphere, for instance, in ordinary aerodynamics, the drag coefficient is about 1. Here we get 3. It means that, again, we think that the effect of this turbulence is stronger than what would be without stratification in ordinary fluid mechanics. It would be 1 for ordinary fluid mechanics. And we think because it produced some turbulence it induced some turbulence in the Ekman layer, or maybe because of this. Okay, we don't know exactly what is the mechanism. We want to clarify that, but apparently from that we can estimate basically the friction in the ocean and give a drag coefficient for each mountain element. Of course, we have to try to generalize that with a wider range of parameters, but this is a final goal, is to be able to give some basically drag coefficient for ocean topography in the bottom of the ocean. Okay. Okay. Bon, this is the conclusion. So we can confirm this idea of the dividing streamline and the fact that we have again, depending on the fluid number, we have part of the flow that goes above topography, excite internal waves, and the lower part goes around and produce vorticity and ordinary wake. Oh yes, okay. We have also observation about the wavelength, but I don't want to go into the detail of that. This is what we try to do with Cruz right now. It's to try to extend what he did to the case with rotation and to really understand how the wavelength depend on the condition, on the rotation, and on the size of the topography. And also we clearly see this difference between the case with no rotation, for which the effect is limited to the bottom, while in the case with rotation you have a strong impact of the bottom topography, the bottom friction to the whole water column. Okay, so thank you for your attention.
¿Alguna pregunta? La tiene en español y luego ya se traducir.
No questions?
So you only one question about when you match the frequency of the waves that are like emitted to the topography to the frequency of either rotation or the frequency due to Grund-Weissala frequency, do you expect the waves to be breaking and generate enhanced turbulence within the fluid?
Yeah, this is, yes. In fact, for a single topography, for a single mountain, because of the three-dimensional structure, the wave energy, in fact, decrease with distance. The density of energy decreases fairly strongly with distance because it propagates horizontally. So the amplitude is fairly low above. So we don't expect so much instability in this case, at least in our simple case. But in the case of real ocean, there are this is this idea about inertial wave that is fairly complicated. But the inertial wave can interact with the variation of the current. In that case, you can get amplification by so-called critical layer when you have a gradient of velocity, which we don't have here. So in our case, basically, there is no significant nonlinear effect, at least for a single topography. For several topography, we may have different wake that superpose, and locally we may have some dissipation. And this is maybe what we observe because I show that you have some fluctuation that are produced at the upper layer. But this, we did not explore very much the details of what happened with multiple topography. It may be that in this case you have some interference of the different waves that produce some localized braking events. And we did not observe that. Yes.
Yes, I wonder how good your control of RPMs in your motor have to be. I mean, your rotation rates. How good are you at controlling that?
This, we have no problem with that, and it's very good. Yes, we have about, I think it's about 10⁻⁴, the relative precision of our rotation. We can check that easily because if there is a change of rotation rate, we observe a fluctuation of the mean value of the velocity. So we don't observe any significant effect here.
So for your rotating experiment, how much spin up do you need to get everything in solid body rotation?
To get things in solid body rotation, it takes, when it's homogeneous, if you have no topography, it's smooth, it takes about 1 hour, typically the Ekman, the spin-up time. If it's stratified, it's much longer because stratification just isolated basically the bottom from the top, and then it can take yes, much more. It can take 1 day. Yes, it can be very long because the stratification block. In fact, the mechanism of spin up is due to Ekman pumping. You have some circulation. You have Ekman layer which has a transverse velocity that pumps fluid from the top. And the effect is transmitted to the whole water column. But when you have stratification, you block this Ekman pumping. The Ekman pumping is limited to the lower part, and then it can stay for a very long time. Of course, if you have topography increases the friction, so the interaction with the bottom is increased by topography. This is what we observe. In that case, we could estimate, in that case we get a spin-up time which is maybe a fraction of an hour. It is from our data we can get that because we have the decay of the velocity. It was 400, in this case 400 seconds, which is about 10 minutes, less than 10 minutes. But of course, because of topography, in that case topography enhances a lot the interaction with the bottom, and this is what we want to study basically. Okay. Yes?
About the topography that we used, I understand that these are these mountains well, the 18 mountains that were set up.
Yes.
Those are like an idealization of the oceanic mountains or something like that.
Yeah, yes, this is exactly, yes.
It's like they have some scale, which is like scale from the oceanic mountains.
Yes, the point is that in the numerical simulation I showed at the beginning, they take a random topography, and there are some measurements, so it's a fractal thing, they have all kind of scale. This is the reality of the ocean. There are different scale, and there are mountains. In the experiments, what we choose is to choose a given scale to understand better the mechanism, because this is a problem. And in fact, in reality, it's very complex. We have all kind of scale. So one approach is to consider some. Okay, one approach would be to take the real topography, but in fact it's not known. The real topography, in fact, is one of the. It's difficult to know the actual topography at the scale. What we are interested here in the kilometer scale, and we don't know in the Antarctic Ocean. We don't know the topography. We know the big features, but not the very small feature. It has been measured only in a very few places. It's difficult to measure. So what people do in the numerical simulation, they do some kind of they introduce some spectrum of topography. So the random topography with some statistical feature that more or less fit with observation. What we choose is to set the scale, but in fact in the terms of dynamics what is important is not the scale by itself, is the non-dimensional numbers that are based on the scale. So basically we can model the effect of a bigger topography by for instance by increasing the stratification, because a bigger topography will be more, we have a bigger smaller fruit number, so it will be more influenced by stratification and also more influenced by rotation. So by changing stratification and rotation, we can in fact reproduce different scale of topography in the actual ocean. To some limited range, we are not able to do everything, but we can at least, of course we can also change the scale of topography, but it's not as easy in a numerical computation. We have to make the topography, and also we are limited by the scale of your tank. So of course we...
And the stratification can be changed relatively simply with...
It's more easy because we control by salinity, so we can put more or less salt, and also to some range we cannot, we are limited in the maximum stratification because of physical density of the salt. We can typically have density of 5%, density different 5% in top and bottom typically, but we can have less, so we can reduce stratification, so we can change to some extent, you can change the rotation.
But with the pumps and everything, it's relatively easy to make different types of stratification, not only linear.
We can do all kinds of stratification. We do linear for simplicity, which is not bad if you are interested in the bottom of the ocean. The linear stratification is not bad. If you are interested in the top, so we did also experiment more because you can have internal waves produced. For instance, I talk about tidal waves that are more in the upper part. In that case, we could do, for instance, exponential stratification. It was which is close to the observation in the upper ocean, so-called thermocline. We have a stratification which is much stronger in the upper part. This is what I showed in the very first transparencies. And we can reproduce that, and it can be useful to reproduce what happened in the upper ocean. For the deep ocean, linear stratification is a good approximation. At least if you are interested in the fluid mechanic principle here, more in the exact thing. So yes. Also for parameter, what is easiest to change is the velocity. I said we can change stratification, rotation, but velocity is the thing that is easier to change. And also because the effect of topography depends on this non-dimensional number that involve velocity, stratification, and rotation. And by changing the velocity, we can change the non-dimensional number and also change the similarity with the different with topography at different scale. So we have some range of possibility. We want to do some more experiments with different parameters. But the idea also is to be able to match with numerical simulation, and then in numerical simulation it's easier to change the parameter. This is also a strategy. We cannot do all the experiments and all the parameters, but we can focus on a few relevant parameters and then expect to use the numerical model as a way to explore more parameters. Okay.
Bueno, muchas gracias.
Okay. Thank you.